Hey everybody, today we're going to be breaking down a chuck roll step by step. Look at all this treasure you get out of one chuck roll. So let's do this. There's 2 of them per cow, so that's good news there. You can get a whole chuck roll for pretty cheap and you get a lot of good stuff out of it. So let's go ahead and get right into it. This top piece here, you got these really hard connective tissue pieces. You're just going to want to throw those away. You don't want to eat those. You don't want to cook them. You don't want to grind them into anything. So just get rid of those. And this is what the top looks like. You have your chuck roast on the end, and you have your chuck eyes and your chuck steaks in there. So where it pulls apart, that's your connective tissue you're going to be cutting through. It's real easy to separate the top from the bottom here. So just pull it away, and where you see the connective tissue, you're just using the tip of that knife, working your way down until you get all the way through. And then that whole top piece is going to be your chuck roll, your chuck eyes, and your chuck steaks, and then your roast. You can only cut so far down on your chuck eye steaks before you start losing the good marbling, and you're going to get more connective tissue than anything. It's going to be a chewier steak, so we just go ahead and wrap that into a roast. So just follow that all the way through, and then once you get them separated, go ahead and flip this over. You can kind of see how this resembles a ribeye. It's the same muscle, it's just further down on the cow. So you're going to go ahead and cut those into whatever desired thicknesses you want. Any waste, you just put into the grind pile. So we're doing about 1 inch here, and you're going to about 7 or 8 steaks. And once you stop seeing the eye of the chuck, that's when you know that you've hit where you want to start wrapping up your roast. You don't want to cut this whole thing up into steaks unless you want to just start calling them chuck steaks, but otherwise these are chuck eyes. And you can see the eye of that start disappearing, so then that's when you're going to want to wrap the rest of it up into your roast. And a chuck roast is delicious. It still falls apart, gets real tender, those connective tissues render down really well. You have a really good flavored roast. So here we're wrapping up in some butcher twine that holds it together as it cooks, so then it cooks more uniform. That's why you use the twine and wrap it up, so it stays the same shape. So here we're going to cut some grind off the top of this. This you really don't use for anything. And just always follow the connective tissue, because that'll keep your muscle groups together. And just use the tip of the knife. You don't need to do any big cuts. We're not in a race. I'd rather go slow and just use the tip of the knife. And here we're going to be getting the Sierra steak out of here, kind of like a flat iron. But again, as you see, just using the knife, tip of the knife, cutting through the connective tissue only, not into the meat. We're going to clean that up. We're going to take this top piece off. Again, just cutting through that connective tissue. You can see how it wasn't, those meats weren't connected. It's just the connective tissue on top. And this is a really good steak. You can cut it up, use it for fajita meat. You can just cook it whole. A lot of people just do that. Pretty versatile piece of meat here too. You can buy a whole chuck roll pretty much anywhere you can buy any meat. I get it from a wholesale store, local butcher. They'll sell you a whole chuck roll. Now we're on to this. So I've had a lot of inquiries on the last video I made about breaking down a chuck roll of how can you maximize the Denver steaks? How do I know when it stops? Where are they at? So you're gonna be able to tell the marbling, the meat fibers run one way, and then it'll switch up and start running the other way. So you can see right through there, that's where one grain goes one way and the other grain goes the opposite way. So that's when you know where to cut through, as you see in the diagram there. And these are going to be your Denver steaks. And again, just cut them to whatever thickness you want, inch, quarter inch, 3/4. It's up to you. People ask, well, how many Denver steaks do you get out of it? Well, depends on how thick you cut them. But Denver steaks are a very good steak. You don't want to just grind those up because they're better on the grill, personally. So take your time, trim them up. These are looking really good. They have nice marbling throughout them, as you can see. And we're not done yet. We still have a lot of things to cut out of this chuck roll here. And then you always want to trim up where you see a whole lot of fat. You're going to want to cut that out because you want some marbling, you want some fat with your steak. It gives it flavor, but you don't want to, where it gets really fatty there, that's where you've kind of hit the end of the line there. And you can cut this up for stew meat, fajita meat. You can do a lot of things with this end piece because it's still good. It's the same meat as the Denver steaks. But we just cut it up small and use it for some stew meat. Or you can grind it up. That's the nice thing about doing it this way when you're cutting up your whole chuck roll. Whatever you prefer. If you don't eat fajitas, you can cut smaller Denvers. You can do the stew meat. You can just grind it all that you're not using for your steaks. If nothing else, you get your Sierra steak, your chuck eye steaks, your Denver steaks, and you can grind the rest if you don't want to mess around with these smaller cuts. But basically you're going for your large pieces of meat, cutting all your fat away from there. The sharper the knife, the better. Invest in a good knife. It'll save you a lot of time and a lot of headache. So there's another roast there. So some Denver steaks. And I'll let the butcher himself walk you through all the cuts here. Thanks for watching.
We got chuck eyes, chuck roast, Denver steaks. This is similar to a flank steak. I can't think of the name right now. You can probably look it up. Stew meat and trim. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Denvers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chucks. Chuck eyes. A couple roasts. And some flat meat. There you go. Hope that helps, Evan.